Hi YouTube, in today's video we're going to explore some of the options you have for lightweight tent pegs. As you can see here, I've got a very nice selection of lightweight tent pegs for you, along with lots of specs, prices, length, grams, and we're also going to do a few tests such as bend tests, pulling out the ground, how much weight it takes to pull out the ground, and just generally how durable they are in different types of ground. So, hope you enjoy this. It's not the most exciting subject I've ever done, but it does need to be explored because the right lightweight tent peg can shave many hundreds of grams off your pack weight, and taking the right lightweight tent peg to the right kind of soil or rock or sand can really increase your chances of having a great night's sleep and just generally securing everything down properly. So let's have a look at these in more detail and we'll start doing the tests. Okay, let's get started. As you can see, we have all the tent pegs laid out on a tarp. You can see the different size differences for each peg. We're going to go over each peg in more detail now. So, starting from the left, we have a heavy-duty normal peg. Now, this is generally what you get with big tents. It's 23 centimeters long, which is 9 inches. It weighs 23 grams each, and they cost about £3 for a 20 pack. Next one along is your standard tent peg, which you'll probably all recognise already. We'll put it in there just for a bit of a comparison with size. This is 20 centimeters long, which is 8 inches, weighs 20 grams, and you can get these for about £2 for a 10 pack. Now, the next one along is the Aluminium Y tent peg. This is a tent peg which is quite lightweight and comes in at 13 grams. It's 7 inches long, which is 18 centimeters. Costs £5 for a 6 pack. Now, I like these tent pegs because they have a large surface area and they don't bend very easily at all. They're really good in soil, which you can find in woodland. And also they're really good in pine needles as well. They pretty much go in any ground, but they're not very good at going in rocky ground because, as you can see at the bottom, there's quite a lot to get past. Next along we have the Aluminium V tent peg, which is this one here. This comes in at 15 centimeters long, which is 6 inches, weighs 12 grams, costs about £4 for a 10 pack. Also, this is good for normal soils, heavy soils, etc. It's not very long, so I would watch out for that one if you really need your top securing. Next along we have the MSR Groundhog, a very popular tent peg from MSR. This comes in quite a long 19 centimeters, which is 7.5 inches. It weighs a very light 11 grams. It does cost a little bit more, and you can get 8 of these for £16. These are very good in normal soils, woodland soils, and also pine needle soil. Next along we have the MSR Mini Groundhog. This is 15 centimeters long, or 6 inches, weighs a very tiny 8 grams, and you can get 16 of these. You can get 6 of these for £16. After this we have the Gram Counter Titanium Nail Peg, which is this one here. I quite like these pegs because they are very strong and you can actually hit them with a hammer and they will pretty much go into rocky ground or any kind of ground you throw at them. They are 16 centimeters long, which is 6.5 inches, 15 grams, and costs £14 for a 4 pack, so quite expensive for them. Next along we have the Vargo Titanium Ultralight Nail Peg, which is this one. This is a smaller version of the previous one, obviously, and this comes in at 15.5 centimeters or 6 inches. It weighs a very tiny 9 grams and it's very expensive. It costs £4 for one. Yes, very expensive. Next up we have the Vargo Titanium Fluorescent tent peg, which is this one here. That comes in at 16.5 centimetres, 6.5 inches, weighs 9 grams and costs £18 for 6. After this we have the LightWeight flash tent peg, which is this one here. This one is 16 centimetres long or 6.25 inches, 5 grams, which is very light. It's made out of aluminium and it is £13.50 for a 5-pack. After this one we have the gram counter titanium peg, which is this one here, and that is 15 centimetres long or 6 inches, 5.5 grams, so very light, and it costs £14 for a 6-pack. Next along we have the gram counter titanium pin pegs, which is this tiny little one here. That comes in at 13 centimetres or 5 inches. It weighs a staggering 2 grams. Yes, 2 grams, that is the lightest tent peg I've ever seen. Quite expensive for the weight because it costs £14 for a 6-pack. And last but by no means least, we have the MSR Carbon Core tent stake, which is this one up here. This is 15 centimetres long or 6 inches. It is also 6 grams, and these are probably the most expensive, and they cost £24 for 4. Okay, that's all the pegs. Now we are going to do quite a few tests on these. The tests include a bend test. We've just compared the sizes, we'll just show you the length and the weights and the prices. We're going to put these in the ground. We're going to go over the pros and cons for each tent peg versus the price, and we're also going to try them from a 6-foot height using the video so you can see how hard they are to spot in the soil once they're in there. Okay, let's move on and do some tests on each peg. Okay, let's start with the heavy duty tent peg, which you probably all recognise. What we're going to do now, we're going to do a bend test with moderate pressure. As you can see, very little bend. The good thing about this tent peg is they are really cheap. They are really long and will go into pretty much any ground. The main drawback with this tent peg is they are extremely heavy for what you're trying to achieve. Let's put this in the ground and then we shall try and pull it out with the luggage scales and see how much force they can take before coming free. Okay, as you can see, we have the tent peg in the ground, the heavy duty tent peg, and we're going to try and pull this up and see how much weight it can withstand. And there we go. Now next we have the normal tent peg, which you'll probably all recognise. Just a simple tent peg. We're going to do a bend test. Bend's the same as the heavy duty one, and let's put it in the ground and then see how much tension we can put on it before it comes up. Okay, next we have a personal favourite of mine, which is the Y configuration normal bog standard aluminium tent peg. Now this should hold a bit more weight because of the large surface area. These are really good because, as you can see with the bend test, they do not bend whatsoever due to the configuration. So let's put this in the ground and see how much we can get out. This is the bog standard aluminium Y tent peg. Now, a disadvantage with this, it does collect quite a bit of muck, but you can scrape that off with another tent peg. Okay, next we have the aluminium V tent peg. You can probably figure out why it's called V. And we're going to put this in the ground and see how much tension it can take. This is good if you don't put it in a pine forest floor. I tried this once on a wild camp and it comes straight out with a few tugs. It does withstand the good bend test because of the design. It's not as strong as the the Y design, but really strong. So let's put it in and see how much you can wiggle out of it. This one also collects quite a bit of muck. Okay, next is another personal favourite of mine, which is the MSR Groundhog. As you can see here with the Y configuration, it doesn't bend and it is slightly longer than the other Y configuration one. So let's put it in the ground and see what we can pull. Okay, next we're going to do the MSR Mini Groundhog, which is this one here. Bend test is also going to perform really well because it's configuration of the Y style. So let's put it in the ground and see what we can pull. Next we have the gram counter titanium nail peg, which is this one here. Let's give it a bend test. Very little bend on that, a certain bit, but very little bend. Let's put it in the ground and see what we can pull. Next along we have the Vargo Titanium Ultralight nail peg, which is this one here. Let's do a quick bend test. A bit more bend than the larger version, but certainly nothing to worry about. Let's put it in the ground and see what we can pull. Okay, next we have the Vargo Titanium Fluorescent Temp Peg, which is this one here. We'll just do a quick bend test. A bit more bend than the Ultralight nail peg and the nail pegs, but certainly up there in quite sturdy. Let's put it in the ground and see what we can pull. Okay, next up we have the gram counter titanium peg, which is this one here. Let's give a bend test. It's quite lightweight, so probably going to bend a bit. A little bit bendy, but nothing to worry about that much, just concerned about the length more than anything really. Let's put it in the ground and see what we can pull. Okay, next up we have the LightWeight flash peg, which is aluminium, which is this one here. Now this is quite a bit bendy from previous experience. Let's do a bend test. Quite a bit bendy. Only bends that way, doesn't bend this way, which is what it's designed for, as you can see. Let's put it in the ground and see what we can do with it. Okay, next up we have the very small and very light gram counter titanium pin peg, which is this one on the end here. Quite a bendy peg, as you would imagine. Here's a bend test. Very bendy peg, but let's see what we can pull with the strength. Okay, last in the pull tests is the MSR carbon core tent stake. This is by far the most expensive in the range, but as you can see, it doesn't bend. There's a slight bend in it, but nothing really at all. And let's give it a pull test and see what we can do. Okay, now we've done the video on the different types of pegs. We've done the pull test, we've done the bend test. I told you a little bit about each peg. Now it's time to go over exactly what I think the best pegs are that you should take on your camping trip. There's a few tent pegs in this range that really stick out to me. And my advice to you is don't just take one set of tent pegs. Take 2 to 3 of a few different types of tent pegs, because you're going to come across different types of soils, different types of grounds, and you really need that versatility, because sometimes you might be in a woodland and you'll be fine using these kind of stakes, but then again the other side of the tent might be some rocky ground where you require this kind of stake, or just the bog standard heavy duty ones. Some of my favourite tent pegs in this range have to be the MSR Groundhog, simply because of the length and the wide configuration. I like this tent peg a lot because you can put it in really far into the ground, which means when the tarp is wiggling it like so, it's not going to lose much of its surface area, and it should be quite secure. It is quite light, as we've seen before. It comes in at 11 grams, which is half the weight of your normal tent pegs, and a lot of surface area, which means it really clings onto the soil, and it's really good in pine forests where the soil is really spongy. So I like that one a lot. Next one I really like a lot is the MSR Carbon Core tent stake. This is a very feather light weight of 6 grams. It's got a good length to it, and it's also got a point, which means you can really bash it down. I wouldn't bash it down directly on the plastic. I would cover it with a sock or something, then bash it down with a rock or a hammer. It is quite meaty, but it's quite light at the same time, which means it's got a good amount of surface area, and it did really well in the pull test. So that's one of my favourites as well. Another one of my favourites is the titanium nail peg. Either the, which one is this one? Either the 15 gram version, which is this one, or the 9 gram version. These are really solid, they don't bend, and you can really drive them down into the ground. So really good for securing tents, tarps, whatever you need. They're not the cheapest ones, but really are worth having at least 2 of these in your tent peg bag. Now I always recommend taking a few different types of tent pegs, but I would also recommend taking the bog standard one as well. I mean, yeah, it does weigh a bit, but they're so cheap you can abuse these and not really care about them. You can also put these through your stoves and use them as pot supports and get them all black and horrible, and you know, they're so cheap you don't really mind putting them through the paces and giving them some abuse. And they go really far into the ground, and they are quite good at going through rocky ground. If you're not, because like I say, because they're so cheap, you don't mind really pushing them down and hammering them down and bending them a little bit. So I really like this one as well. Now just to go over some of the titanium pegs. The lightest one, which is 2 grams, it's really not worth buying these whatsoever for anything, I would say. They're so bendy, and they just, I can't see them holding it down in any kind of ground except for really rocky stuff. They're not very long, so they're not going to have a lot of surface area on them. They're going to pull out really easy, as you said in the pull test. Again, with this type of titanium peg as well, they're not very long. They do have a bit of a point on the end, but they're so short that even when they are in the ground, they wiggle out quite easily, and they're not very secure. Let's put it that way. This kind of tent peg's worth a look, where it's bendy on one side but not on the other, as you can see with this one. They are quite long, and they do come with a hook, so very easy to secure. Yeah, give this one a try. So what would I take if I had to take 2 pegs on a woodland trip, or an open area with soil? I would take the MSR Groundhog, possibly the MSR Groundhog Mini, one or the other, and I would also take the titanium nail peg. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to put all these tent pegs in the ground and see how difficult they are to see at a height of 6 foot on the camera. A lot of people complain that they do lose titanium nail pegs and other pegs simply because they're so thin and you can't really see them from above, especially in the dark if it's 10 times as bad. So we're going to see how difficult they are to see from a 6 foot height with a camera. Okay guys, this is a view from a 6 foot person. You'll see I've put all the tent pegs in a row and you can see just how hard they are to see from that kind of height. So now we'll drop down to 3 foot. And then we'll drop down a little bit further. Now I like the fact that some tent pegs have some cordage on. This makes them a lot easier to see. I'm quite surprised at the MSR carbon stake. That is quite difficult to see. I'm not surprised at the 2 gram one or the aluminium one. If they get covered up with leaves, you've pretty much lost them if you don't know where they are. The V tent peg's quite good because of the top on there, and the aluminium Y peg's quite good. The MSR's Groundhog Mini, quite hard to see, but like I say, they've got cord on, so they're not so bad. I don't see why we wouldn't put a bit of longer cord on there to make it about 6 inches long. It would make sure that if they did get covered up, then a little bit of this cordage would probably stick out. I also like to put reflective cord on the end of my tent pegs, just so if you flash a flashlight on them, they really stick out in the dark. The nail pegs really need this kind of cord on the end, because if they didn't have this kind of cord on the end, they are quite difficult to see from above. You would have to really feel around for these pegs if you lost them, and like I say, it is quite common for people to lose these pegs, and they are expensive. We'll just view these from the side so you get a better angle of them, and we'll go back up. We'll go back up to 6 foot again. And also 6 foot angle. Zoom in a little bit just so you know which one's where, and then we'll zoom out. Just a quick tip you can do if you have trouble bending down to the tent pegs, say if you've got a bad back, or if you're trying to get the tent peg out and it simply won't budge with your hands, because sometimes they can be quite sharp and you can hurt your hands sometimes. So a safe way to do this is by using your feet, as we can see here. All you've got to do is put the tent peg between your feet, like so. Put your feet together. There's a better view. Put your feet together, then simply rock back onto your heels while keeping your feet together at the front tight, and it pulls them up using the power of leverage. As you can see, don't have to bend down and you can get all your tent pegs up. Now you can also use it with the V peg, easy as pie. And for this type of nail peg, all you've got to do is put something through the loop and pull it up like this. If you have trouble getting the hook pegs out of the ground, all you've got to do is get another one, latch it on, pull it up. Doesn't hurt your hands at all. Do the same with the ones with the cord on. Quite easy. As you can see, everybody knows this, but worth mentioning. Okay guys, that concludes the end of this video. I hope it's been useful for you, and welcome to the exciting world of tent pegs. Had to be covered because there's lots of things to consider when you're taking tent pegs, and the worst thing is you bring in a tent peg along and it doesn't stay on the ground, you're going to have a really bad time. If you do have any questions regarding the different types of tent pegs, please add your comments below. I'm more than happy to bring them out again, answer your questions and pretty much help you out. Thanks for watching the video. If you do like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel for more gear reviews and outings and things like that. And I'm also pleased to report to everyone wishing to know, no tent pegs were lost or harmed in this video. Thanks.